Well, good afternoon, guys. I've been away for the last week doing a bit of traveling, and I'm working on a little video, but it's taken me a bit longer than I thought it would. So I thought we'd have a little tutorial today, not something I've done before, but I wanted to show you how you can actually take photos that sometimes you don't think are that interesting and make them so much more interesting, so much better. So let's just jump into this straight away. Let me hit record on my phone. Boom. The magic of technology. So first things first, we're going to be going into Lightroom. Now Lightroom is, for those of you that don't know, basically the #1 application that you need for color grading and just improving the quality of your photos. There is so much to the applications, and they come in forms for your computer as well as your phone, as well as tablets. It is across the board. For me personally, I've always worked off a computer, but very recently I used the app and I found it so good. You can do everything on your phone that you can do pretty much on your computer. So we're just jumping into that now, and I'm going to scroll through my... There we go. So here's a photo that for me is all right. It's nothing that special, but I know there's so much more we can do with it. There's no particular order in terms of ways that I kind of work on my photos. Generally, I'll jump into certain tabs and work on things that I think need to be assessed straight away. So on this, we're going to hit, let's go for light to start with. So along the bottom of your screen here on the Lightroom application, you've got a number of tabs, and the one with the sunshine logo that I've just selected brings up your submenu, and that shows you exposure, contrast, highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. Now, with this photo, it's actually pretty well exposed. One thing I like to do with my photos is just bring up a little bit more contrast in them. And I also like to bring my highlights down. Now, if you watch as I bring the highlights down, you're going to see that those clouds start to get a lot more three-dimensional. Can you see that there? There we go. That's good. So we're going to do that. The next thing that I'm looking at is things like the tyres on the car, the wheel on the back of the Land Rover, and the blacks, maybe the parts of the picture that I've lost all detail in. Now what we're going to do with this again is our shadows tab will bring out, there we go, as I bring that up I'm going to go extreme. So there you go, you can see what it does do, but I don't like that. I mean, this is all about artistic interpretation, so for me I just want to bring it up a little bit. Perfect, there we go. What the whites do is they control the very high end of your whites within a photo. The shadows will bring out the darker parts of your photo and make them lighter. The whites will essentially make the light parts a lot brighter. So if you see as I slide that up, I mean, that's blowing out a lot in the photo, but again, some people like that. I'm not a massive fan. So as I slide this slider, what I'm looking at is I'm looking at my clouds. And if you look within that shot, you can see the way that that cloud detail starts to disappear. So I'm going to bring that back a little bit until there. So that's giving me all of the detail that I need. Again, because we brought those highlights down, but we've also added that full kind of dynamic range of light within the photo. Now we can also see when we altered the shadows that we've brought a little bit more detail into our wheels and other parts of the picture, especially the bottom left corner where you've got that kind of seaweed growing up the bottom of the frame. So I'm really happy with that. Now blacks again controls the extreme dark areas of your photo. It's not going to make your shadows disappear, but again, if we drop that down, you will see that we start to really add a bit more contrast to the photo. Again, I'm going to go really extreme, and you can see how it almost posterizes it. That's not something we want to do. We want to just I mean, essentially that photo looks pretty good as it is, but I'm just going to bring it a little bit down because again, I love that look of contrast within a photo. So already the photo's looking a lot better. If I hold down on the picture itself in Lightroom, just tap my finger on the screen, you can see how that changes back to the original look. And as I take my finger off, it goes back to what we've done with it. I've always had a bit of an interest in HDR photography. That's high dynamic range. That is showing the most detail within a photo. But again, it's knowing how to use it subtly. A lot of people will again, beginners, people like myself, when we've started doing photography, and if you scroll through my Instagram feed, I'll leave a link in the description. You tend to do too much to a photo sometimes, and sometimes people will always say to me that my photos are over edited, but it's just the way I like them, although I think I've got a lot better at that. Right, so that's pretty much our light tab done on the photo. We've really kind of pulled out everything that we need within that. The next thing I'm going to jump on is the little kind of thermometer symbol, which is next to it. Now this controls our color. The first thing that we come to when we come onto the sub tabs for color are white balance, and then it's tint, vibrance, and saturation. Temperature is something, again, that you can have quite a lot of artistic say in terms of how you want your photo to look. If you are walking through a winter wonderland and you want a cold photo, then you may want to kind of bring that photo down a little bit. The temperature tab will swing from a blue cold to a warm orange saturation. So again, I'm just going to show you on my screen. There we go. Cold, extreme, warm, extreme. And again, they are very much extremes of what we can do, and I would always advise you to do just minor touches to whatever you want to do within your photos. For me, I'm just going to bring that up a tiny bit to there. I mean, we've gone up +2, that's next to nothing, but in my head I can see that's brought out a little bit more warmth within the shot. It's also brought out a little bit more of the orange within the shot as well. If we look at where the seaweed is lying on the beach and where it's kind of lying across the front of the photo there, we can really see that orange coming out in the photo now. Tint. So your tint a photo can be, I mean, Google this or go on YouTube and try and find out a little bit more about tint yourself, because it's not something I tend to use too much. But basically, if we slide that left and right, that's going to go through from green to purple. And again, I think that just comes from the hues that can naturally come within a photo, and you may want to alter that yourself. But we're going to leave tint alone because I'm not going to pretend I know what that does too much. Vibrance and saturation. I've always thought of vibrance as a way of bringing out color in a photo without it looking too unnatural. So again, if we slide that tab up, you'll see that the colors really start to pop. And if we bring it down and desaturate it, I love a desaturated photo. I think they can look absolutely great. But for this, I'm actually gonna leave the vibrance as it is. Now saturation can just kill a photo for me. There are so many photos I look at online on Instagram, and people will go whoop and just bring out all the colors, and it just looks like toyland. I'm not a fan at all. So again, we're going to bring the saturation down. A nice way that I found photos look great is if I bring my saturation down but then bring my vibrance up. So if we do that now, there we go. Again, I'm a much happier with the way that photo, and it still looks quite natural. So that's the sub menu for color. But again, if we scroll to the top of that sub menu, you will see there are two tabs on the right hand side that say black and white, B&W, and the other one says mix. Now this is an incredibly powerful part of editing within Lightroom on mobile or on your computer. Once we jump in here, what we're actually able to do is we're able to control every single part of the colors within our photos. And as photographers, you'll learn once you start using these applications to look at things that you naturally go, oh, that's a green tree, and you'll be like, oh no, actually it's mostly yellow. And it really kind of makes you think about your photography. So within this, what I want to do Again, don't need to, but I'm looking at the orange on the beach, and I'm looking at a few other things there. And what I want to do is I'm going to jump on the orange. So I've just selected the orange within the color mix there. And for every single color, we can control the hue, the saturation, and the luminance. The hue will change the color with other colors that are directly left or right of that. Well, that's how my brain works. That's how I think of it. So if we select orange, we can start, if I go across, we can start going more towards a red, or if I slide the hue the other way, more towards a yellow. For me, I'm going to push it slightly more towards the yellow because I want to go for a kind of teal and yellow shot. That's the color balance that I'm aiming for within this. So we're really going to be focusing on changing the colors of our blues and our yellows and our oranges. So we've just changed the orange a little bit there. Now, again, for every single color, we can change the saturation. But again, I'm really happy with that, so I'm going to leave that as it is. And the luminance, so that will make the color lighter or darker. Within this particular image, I'm not going to touch that because I really like the way that it looks. And now we're going to jump onto the blue tab. Now, with the blue, it's very natural. This is going to look slightly unnatural, but again, I think it will give us a nicer image when we're finished with it. I'm going to slide the hue on the blue slightly more towards the teal, so you're really not noticing a huge difference there. And that's partly because I'm not touching the bloody tab. Right, there we go. So that's kind of, I don't want to go too far, but I'll show you an extreme. That's extreme. And we just want to, there we go. So we're going to go -25 on that. Now what I'm also going to do is I want to know how much this is controlling the way my clouds look within my photo. So I'm going to jump on luminance, and I'm just going to slide that left and right just to have a look at how that affects my clouds. It really isn't. All it's doing, you can see in the distance above the hills, it's just bringing in a little bit more depth within them. And again, I'm going to keep that exactly as it is. So boom, that's done. Another thing that I'm realizing when I look at this image is that there is a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? We're getting a little bit of noise. So we're going to jump off our color tabs now. We're going to hit done there. So we've only messed around with two colors, the orange and the blue, and we've changed that to kind of, they're very complementary colors, and I wanted them to work within that photo for me. So that's done. I've left the red of the unstable keep clear, I guess that's what it used to say within the photo, because I really like that. It gives it a little bit of pop and a little bit of difference within the photo. So let's leave that. And again, we're going to jump across these bottom tabs here. And what I am looking for is this one with the little triangle logo here. So I'm going to hit that. So that's highlighted. Now this brings us up to sharpening. I always add in a little bit of sharpening, but again, be very, very careful. If you add too much, your photos will just look weird and your eyes won't be able to really understand why. However, if we bring this up just a little bit, what I always feel like it does is it just makes your image look so much more professional, because it's just focusing on bringing out a little bit of that detail in the wheels, on the lettering, and it's also bringing out a little bit more definition within the stonework underneath the truck there. The next thing that we're going to go to is noise reduction. And again, if I zoom in on this image, so I'm just going to pull in on the clouds nice and close. If we look at this part of the image above the clouds, we can see there that it's almost kind of dotted, almost pixelated. And one of the reasons for that is because of how much we are editing this photo. And I'm really happy with the look overall, but I want to kind of smooth that out. So if we go to noise reduction and we just slide that over, there we go, plus 13. And we've started to get rid of a lot of that noise reduction. To give you an extreme version of that, if I go all the way over, look at that. It looks like a painting. That to me is horrendous, and that's not what we want. We want to keep the photo looking natural, So we're going to bring that down. And remember, as we're zoomed in, we're getting a much closer look at these parts of the photo. And when we come back out of the photo, a lot of that noise reduction will take care of itself. So remember, when you're trying to get rid of noise, don't try and get rid of it all if you're zoomed in, because it's not going to be visible to the naked eye. So we're going up to 25% on detail and 22% on noise reduction. Let's see how that looks. Let's bring the photo back out. Bloody love that. Look at that. That is awesome. Now, next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Selective Edits. So what Selective Edits does, and this is these are probably one of the most important things, especially when you're looking at a photo that you're not happy with, is it's controlling the exposure within a shot. Your camera isn't like your naked eye. It doesn't look at a scene and it's able to kind of patch everything together to make your brain know what you're looking at when things are underexposed and overexposed. We have to control that within the photo. So on this photo, I'm looking at this and I can see that the water for me personally in this shot is too dark, and the clouds are perhaps a little bit dull. There's something not quite like, I'm not quite loving the look of those clouds. So the first thing I'm going to do, we've selected Selective Edits, and when you go into Selective Edits, you can hit this plus symbol in the top left hand corner, and this will allow us to choose how we want to select which part of the photo we want to edit. We're going to keep it simple on this tutorial, and we're going to select the one that looks like a square on the right. And then if you pop your finger on the screen, I'm going to pop my finger on the screen at the bottom and drag up. And if you see, that gives us this red mask. This is showing us the part of the photo that we're going to edit. You can also see that fades off towards the top. So where that fade is where the effect that we're going to overlay on this photo will slowly peter out. So I've selected the water. Now what am I going to do? I'm going to do exactly the same thing that I've done with the whole photo, but on one part. We've got all of these sub-menus within Selective Edit. So I'm going to go back on Light. As soon as I start editing this, it's going to get rid of that red mask and it's going to show me what I'm doing. So there you go. Look at that. So that's our standard. And as I bring the exposure up, that's given me what I would consider a much nicer photo. It's given me that reflection within the water. We need to be very careful we don't do too much with this, because we want to keep that balance. And again, you can kind of get lost in a photo sometimes and do too much. So that's all I'm going to do. That's it. So we will hit the little tick there. So that's done. I'm looking at those clouds. I'm just going to have a quick look, see if there's anything we could do with those. So I'm going back into Selective Edits. I'm hitting the square tool and I'm dragging a mask. This time, instead of bottom to top, top to bottom. And there, that's kind of the mask that I want to be going for. And we're going to go to light and we're going to go, see, now I'm blowing my clouds out. But if I bring that, whoa, look at that, that looks pretty cool, right? So instead of what I thought I would be doing, which is bringing that tab up, I've brought it down a little bit, and it's really kind of extentuated. That's not a word, is it? It's kind of given more of a 3D effect to my cloud. So I've dropped that a little bit more down on the exposure within that part of the shot. I'm going to see if bringing my highlights down, yeah, so if we bring the highlights down again, we can see that we're giving those clouds even more dimension. How good does that look? So that's that done. If I look in the top left corner, I can see that the clouds look quite dark there, and I just want to check that if I go to my shadows and bring the shadows up a bit, that will just very subtly lighten those. And again, remember, we're within Selective Edits and we're controlling the light within the clouds at the moment. We've done the water, we've done the photo overall, but essentially with this photo, there are three parts to it. There are the clouds, there's the truck and the beach, and there's the water. And they're the three parts that we're trying to, at the moment, get the light conditions right on. And this is the last one of those three. So we've done that now. So let's hit tick there. I'm really happy with that. So let's just hold our finger down on the screen again to see what the photo looked like before and after. Love it. So now the last thing we're going to do is Instagram posts your photos, and this is where I post most of my photos. The best crop size for a photo is 4:5. So we're going to go to crop. Within crop, we've got a sub menu again, and we're just going to go to original, and then we're going to change that to 4:5. Now 4:5 is the best size to post within Instagram because it gives you the most real estate within someone's phone screen. It allows you to take up the most of their phone screen when they're looking at your photo. If you are posting a photo and it is in a, let me show you, within something like this, so we brought this down so it was more like a landscape than a portrait, you're only going to take up that much of someone's screen, and that's going to be a tiny little photo. So we want to make sure our photos look as good as possible, but within the constraints of the application, and that is 4:5. So let's bang on that 4:5 again, and let's get this right. For me, I want to get a really nice balance within the photo of the water within the bottom third, the clouds in the top third, and me and the truck and Nero in the middle. I'm going to just check if I bring that out a bit, what that looks like if we make ourselves a little bit bigger within the shot. Not so happy with that. Again, personal preference. And I've dropped the truck slightly more into the bottom half of the photo. And that looks pretty spot on. So all I'm going to do, just adjust that out a little bit, hit the tick. That's recropped. I'm happy with that photo. So now I'm going to go up here to the three dots in the top right hand corner. No, I'm not. I'm going to go to the share tab just there. And within this sub menu, you can immediately share straight into things like Instagram, but I don't want to do that. I'm just going to jump onto export, and we're going to export this in a JPEG, highest available quality. And that's 100%. So we're going to hit tick, preparing to export. That's done. We now have that photo exported. So we've still got the original photo saved. We haven't changed the original photo. We can go back to that photo at any point, but now we have our edited photo saved as well. So we've got the two options with those photos. And that's pretty much it in terms of my process when I'm going through a photo and trying to figure out what I want to do. Couple of quick tips for you. When you are shooting your photos, whether it is on your phone or on your camera, make sure you're shooting within RAW. Do not shoot in JPEG. If you shoot a JPEG image, you're going to be shooting a flat image, and none of what we have just gone through will really work for you. You will not be able to pull that detail out within the shot. Another thing is, there are other things. I'm just looking at this photo that I would actually go in and change again. So like the greens, let's do this very quickly whilst we're here. We're not going anywhere. Right, I'm going to go back into color. Again, we're going to go into mix, and this time we're going to select green. Now you see the greens and the yellows of those trees. Now I like them, but I feel they pull away from the image a little bit because we're focusing on the yellows and the blues. So what I'm going to do with my greens is I'm just going to bring down the saturation like so, and the yellows within the trees, going to bring that down a little bit as well. Remember, that won't affect too much the orange because that's on a separate color tab. It may affect it slightly because it is close, it's its second cousin basically. But straight away, I'm much more happy with those greens within the shot. They're not jumping out, they're not so vivid, they're not so bright. And if we really wanted to, we could also bring down the luminance a bit. So we, again, kill that part of the photo so it's not the focal aspect of this photo. Again, really happy with that. Go back into the three buttons for share, go to export, export again in high quality. And that's that done. So this was going to be a 2-minute tutorial video. We've been going for 24 minutes. That is ridiculous. Ooh, longest video. Anyway, if you've liked this tutorial, I'm going to carry on doing a few more, and it won't be anything specific unless you want to know something specific within Lightroom or any of the other software that I use. Drop me a line in the comments, but I hope that's given you some idea in terms of how I work with my photos and what we can do. Enjoy the rest of your day. And tag me in some of your photos at Nero and me on Instagram when you've had a little play around with this tutorial. And I'm really looking forward to what you come up with. Take care, guys. Bye.